Sounds like they're all ready. So this is arguably one of the more important lessons that we're going to start. Arguably one of the more important stretches that we're going to start with integers, adding them. We'll get to subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Although multiplying and dividing integers you're going to find out to be a lot less complex than adding and subtracting. Now, the sooner you can catch on to this process, the better off you're going to be, because it's not going to go away. I've got algebra students right now who, even to this day, still struggle just a little bit understanding the difference. Okay? So when we think about adding integers, that's basically putting together any values that you could find on a number line. It would include all the positive values and all the negative values. Okay? Needing to understand what that is. The first thing I want to talk about today is something called absolute value. Every integer has what's called an absolute value. And the absolute value is that integer's distance from 0 on a number line. Okay? These are all good notes. All notes you need. I write something on the board, you write it in your notes. That's how it works. How it always worked from the beginning. Distance from 0 on a number line is absolute value. Carlos. Distance from 0 on a number line. Absolute value is indicated by these two vertical bars on either side of the integer. So this here is asking for the absolute value of 4. Now, how many places, or what's its distance from 0 on a number line? 4. To get from 0 to 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4 places, right? That's its distance from 0. What is the absolute value then of a negative 3? How many places from 0 is negative 3? How many places from 0 is negative 3? Yes? Just give me a number. Did we say here, do we say 4 to the right? It's just 4. And this is going to be just 3. It has an absolute value of 3. If I were to look at a number line, if I were to use a number line to try to find both of these values, okay? If I looked at a number line and I wanted to find out what's the distance from 0 for a positive 4, I would count off. Here's my 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I wanted to find that for negative 3, I'd say here's my 0. 1, 2, 3. Now don't worry about left or right, okay? But your answer to that absolute value question, whether you're finding the absolute value of a positive integer or the absolute value of a negative integer, is always going to be positive. The value is the value, okay? And that's very important when thinking about adding integers. Which of those has a greater absolute value? A positive 4 or a negative 3? Which one has a greater absolute value? Yes. The 4 or the negative 3? 4. Now, think about it. If you just told me that the 4 has a greater absolute value than the negative 3, if I were to put them together, would I end up with a positive result or a negative result? Which one had the greater absolute value? Liam. The positive 4. Therefore, when I put those two together, it'll be positive. Now, let's look at that. Let's put that into practice. What were the two integers? If I were to say it was, I had a 4 and I had a negative 3. Okay, let me show you something. I want to add these together. There's two different ways I can do it. I could say 4 plus a negative 3. Or I could say negative 3 plus a 4. Now, is my 3 still negative? Yep. My 4, is it still positive? Yeah. How do you know it's positive? It doesn't have a negative in front of it. Okay? So let's take a look at how we would come about that using the assistance of a very small number line. Okay? If we talked about number lines before, we talked about it last week. Or earlier this week. Was it earlier this week? Monday? We said if we wanted, what direction is going to tell us, or if I move to the right, what's going to happen to the values of my integers? Right. So usually when we add, we go to the right. Right? It's bigger. When we subtract, we go to the left. Now, we already have an idea because we said that these are going to be, the absolute value of 4 is 4, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. I'm going to end up positive, but the question is going to be by how much. Okay? So, if I take a look, these are saying the same thing. The addition's the same. The integers are the same. Am I combining a positive 4 and a negative 3 here? Yes. Am I combining a negative 3 and a positive 4 here? Yeah. The integers haven't changed. The order did, but can you add in any order? Sure you can. This first integer is basically known as a starting point. So let's just use this one at the bottom first. If I start here at negative 3, this first integer, any confusion as to which place I'm going if I add 4? If I add 4. Go to the right. How many places? 4. Start at 3, negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 puts me where? Positive 1. What's the difference between a 4 and a 3? Isn't it just 1 anyway? 4 and a 3, that's not a difference of 1. Especially when we talk about the absolute value. So yeah, the absolute value of the positive 4 was 4. The absolute value of the negative 3 was 3. It was a difference of basically 1. And we knew that 1 was going to be positive. Why? Because I had a greater absolute value with my positive integer. Okay, we'll finish this one, then I'm going to show you something else. Start at 4. If I add a negative, okay, let's think of it this way. You're at the Mount Olive tournament. You got $4 in your pocket. You're starting off with 4. But you're taking on a negative 3. In other words, did someone hand you $3 or did you maybe spend $3? You spent it. So if you have only two directions to go on this number line, either to the right or to the left, if I'm going to start at 4 and I take away 3, I'm adding a negative, which really means 4 minus 3. Adding a negative really means subtracting. Okay, I only got two places to go on this number line. Because adding a positive would give me 4 plus positive 3 gives me 7. So why would 4 plus a negative 3 also give me 7? Does that make sense? No. So I'm going to start at 4, and instead of going to the right, I'm going to go to the left. 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Where does it put me? Again, puts me in a positive 1. Like we said, same integers, adding both, at least initially. So what did we work with? We had a positive 4 and a negative 3. And we compared the absolute values and said that one was greater because it had an absolute value of 4, that had an absolute value of 3. What if I have a negative 4 and a positive 3? What's the absolute value of the negative 4? 4. Absolute value of the positive 3 is 3. The difference between 4 and 3 again is what? 1. But in this case, you put a negative 4 with a positive 3, are you going to get a positive 1? What are you going to get? A negative 1. It has a greater absolute value. And we can show that in different ways. 4 plus a negative 3, negative 4 plus 3. Either way, essentially we're adding the same two integers. We said that adding a negative was just like doing what? What is 4 minus 3? Oh, I wrote the wrong one. My fault. 3 plus a negative 4. 3 minus 4. So how can you... Now you can do that. Kind of like when we stepped into big boy math and we said we no longer have remainders. Now it's possible to say, you know what? I started with 3. I took away 4. Yes, that is possible. It's just going to put me on the negative side. Okay, if I started at 3 and went 4 places to the left, it's going to put me at negative 1. Okay, just like here. Negative 4 plus 3. If I start at negative 4, and I go 3 places to the right, it's still going to put me at negative 1. Yes? No. You mean a positive 4 and a negative 4. What do you think? Okay. So if it's not, if there's not a greater positive absolute value and there's not a greater negative absolute value, you're somewhere right in the middle. Where's that going to put you? Right. Now think of it this way too. You've been working with simple addition problems forever. And when I mean forever, for you guys, I mean like probably like 6 years. Like half your life. Maybe even longer. Give me a simple addition problem that, like a simple one, that you have been working with that you could have probably answered in kindergarten. It's not. Sure. Okay, now I'm going to ask you this. If we were to put a 2014 twist on this problem and make sense of it, what is the this is an absolute value of a positive 1. What is it? What is the absolute value of this positive 1? Okay. Now, are you dealing with any positive and negative working against each other? These are both positive. Therefore, you're going to have an answer that's going to be more positive. In this case, is 2 more positive? Did that put you further over on the positive side? Sure it did. When both of the absolute values are the same, in other words, if they're both positive, you're going to end up with a positive. Right? You're going to end up with a positive integer. If you have also, if you put 2 negatives together, okay? Say you owe someone $2. How could you represent owing someone $2 into integer form? Is that a -2 or a +2 if you owe someone $2? -2, right? And I'm going to add to that, well, I owe this person, I owe Zakaya $2, and I owe Mariah $4. Am I making out in this deal at all? Am I better off after this deal is done owing her 2 and owing her 4? Together, how much do I owe them? 6. How would I show that? Yeah, it's a -6. It's a -6. I didn't gain any money there at all. I lost. Right. So when both of the absolute values are the same, okay, you add 2 negatives together, you're going to get even further negative. You add 2 positives together, you're going to get even further positive. We said through our first examples that if I have a positive and I add it to an absolute value of some negative integer, what's it going to be? Can we tell? What don't we know? We don't know what the numbers are. So if I combine a positive with a negative, depending on the absolute value, that'll tell me if it's going to give me a positive or a negative sum. Well, let's see how that goes. -13 plus 7. Is my answer going to be in the positives or is it going to be in the negatives? Negative, good. So what's the difference then between a 13 and a 7? 6. So my answer should be 6. Number line time. All right. This first integer is always your starting point. So if I got a number line in front of me, Frank, and I start at -13, which is all the way over here, and I'm going to add 7, which direction am I going to go on my number line? To the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where is this? -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Do me a favor right now, somewhere in your notes, make yourself a nice number line. Do you have a number line in your assignment notebook? Can I look at yours? And I'll show you the process and show you how you can use the number line to help you figure out some of this stuff. First problem. 9 added to a -3. Can someone tell me between a +9 and a -3, which one has a greater absolute value? Which one is further away from 0? The positive. So we should have what kind of an answer? A positive. Very good. What does 9 plus a negative 3 really mean? Really means 9 minus 3. Because think of it this way. Just think of it this. Don't write this down. If it doesn't mean 9 minus 3, what's the only other possibility that it could mean? 9 plus 3. Does that make sense? Adding a negative will give you the same thing as adding a positive? No, not even close. Opposite, actually. So you think it through. No, it doesn't mean 9 plus 3. So here's how we use our number line. Now, I know that you can look at this right away and say, oh, 9 minus 3, that's easy, that's 6, right? But this first integer is your starting point. So if I start on that 9, and I know I'm subtracting 3, my directional arrows tell me if I'm subtracting, I'm going to go which way? 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3 puts me at the 6 that we had already mentioned. Okay? The first digit is always the starting point. Okay, good enough. It is 6. Okay, try that one. First of all, is really asking us. This first integer does not change. This one here, adding a negative, really means subtracting 4. Now let's use our number line. This first integer is our starting point. I'm going to locate that negative 4 right there. Now, subtracting 4. Subtracting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 puts us where? Negative 8. You know why I use this example? Because people look at this and right away they think 0. They don't go through the process. They don't use the number line. They just say, oh, 0. Got to be careful. Okay, I have 8th graders. They're probably kids in high school that still just do the same thing. After a while, after you have kind of trained your brains into just knowing what these are, then you'll get there. But you're not quite there yet. So use the number line. Make sure you know exactly what it is you're doing. You don't even have to. I know that when I suggest using the number line, some of you think that's too baby to say, oh, just use the number. You don't have to count it out, you guys. You don't have to say, okay, I'm going to start here at the negative 4, and I'm going to subtract 4. You don't have to say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you know what? You know what the number line is great for? If I know that I have this, I know I'm starting here, I know what direction I'm going, I know that from a negative 4 I'm going 4 that way, I know it's not going to be 0 just by looking at it. Again, what do we have? Remember we talked about before? I combined a negative absolute value with another negative absolute value. That's only going to make your sum more negative. Was our sum more negative? Was it further negative? Yeah. I see people packing up. Huh. Thanks for the cue. Thanks for the cue. The cue that I better hand this out before the bell rings. I wouldn't have even known. Did you make a face at him?